Okay, so tonight, Be'ezras Hashem, we're going to be continuing with a new series of shirim on the Torah of Rebbe Nachman of Breslov, on the concept of Rebbe Nachman of Breslov. And Be'ezras Hashem, in this series of shirim, what we're going to try and do, or what I'm going to try and do, is give a little taste of my conception of Rebbe Nachman of Breslov. And tonight's title of tonight's shir is going to be what Rebbe Nachman means to me, but with the deliberate addition that the words Rebbe Nachman are in scare quotes or in quotation marks. Not to chas v'shalom deny the historic reality of Rebbe Nachman, because Rebbe Nachman very much existed, like all of us exist, on the level that all of us exist. But when talking about Rebbe Nachman of Breslov, Rebbe Nachman ben Fega, it's axiomatic and it's really important to introduce with the basic awareness that this is a sugya. This tzaddik is a world unto itself. If there are tzaddikim, there's Rebbe Nachman. Rebbe Nachman is of a different level, in my humble opinion, in my own heart, than nearly any other tzaddik that can be spoken about, at least in this particular way. And when talking about Rebbe Nachman, for me, it's very important to recognize that all I can try and do is share my appreciation of what this tzaddik is, what this concept is, what this idea is, what this tzaddik means. There's really no other tzaddik who has been proven so historically correct. Because Rebbe Nachman, at the outset, in this small, broken down Chasidus, where there was such a snagdus, and there was such hatred and animosity towards the light of Breslov, towards the fire that burns in Breslov, that to think through future orientation that Breslov would be inflaming the world would be something that would have been laughed at, scoffed at, denied completely. It would have been said to be ridiculous. But, kachava, here we are in 2020, and Avada, the world's on fire, but part of that flame is from the flame of Rebbe Nachman. And the biggest chiddush of Rebbe Nachman, amongst the chidushim, is that Rebbe Nachman knew. What Rebbe Nachman knew, how Rebbe Nachman knew, that's certainly not for me to try and even begin to explain. There's certain tzaddikim in the tradition of Breslov who speak very much about that koyach of Rebbe Nachman. But suffice it to say that Rebbe Nachman knew. And Rebbe Nachman knew that the Torah that he was teaching, the Torah that he was giving over in the darkness of Ukraine, in that dark space of Uman towards the end of his life, Rebbe Nachman understood that there was something nitzchi here, that there was something forever. There was something that was not only for the time being, but when Rebbe Nachman spoke, he spoke l'dori doros. He spoke for generations to come. Like Rebbe Nachman said to Rebbe Noson, whose yahrzeit it is tonight, without Rebbe Noson of Nimra, of Schusli Aganalenu, we wouldn't have a Rebbe Nachman. That's what Rebbe Nachman himself said, that without my Rebbe Noson, without my scribe, without this tzaddik who's writing down my teachings, who's compiling my teachings, who's living my teachings, who's sharing my teachings, there would be no concept of me. The concept of Rebbe Nachman wouldn't exist without Rebbe Noson. So, not that it was planned this way, but everything that we speak about tonight, and for the future amount of time that we speak about Rebbe Nachman, should be b'schus the neshama of Rebbe Noson, whose yahrzeit it is tonight. Rebbe Nachman had a number of talmidim. Rebbe Noson was not the only talmid of Rebbe Nachman. The question is, that different tzaddikim have asked, is what made Rebbe Noson different than the other talmidim of Rebbe Nachman? To the point that Rebbe Nachman was able to say that he waited his whole life to meet Rebbe Noson. And that without my Nosonal, without my Rebbe Noson, I wouldn't exist. What was different about Rebbe Noson? And the way that different mashpiyim teach it is that all of the chasidim, all of the talmidim of the tzaddik, of Rebbe Nachman of Breslov, understood that there was a chiddush here. Understood that what they were tasting from, this vat of Hungarian wine, of yayin ungari, that they were tasting from, that they were drinking from, was something mechudash, it was something new. That there was nothing as novel as this, chidush kamoni lo haya ba'olam. A novelty like me, says Rebbe Nachman, has never been in the world. And we're going to see in Mirz Hashem what that means, or on a small level what that means. Everybody understood that there was something new here. There was something mechudash here. What Rebbe Noson understood was that there was also something nitzchi here. That Rebbe Nachman is not simply a chiddush for the generation of Rebbe Nachman, but the fire of Rebbe Nachman, the Torah of Rebbe Nachman, the tefillos of Rebbe Nachman, the posture of Rebbe Nachman, the Emunah of Rebbe Nachman, the midos of Rebbe Nachman, the emotional space of Rebbe Nachman, the anxiety of Rebbe Nachman, the dance of Rebbe Nachman, the sigh of Rebbe Nachman, all of that is not simply for his generation, but it's for Dore Doros. There will come a time, says Rebbe Noson, when the only way that a Jewish individual will be able to grab hold of the vestiges of Emunah, of the vestiges of faith, is going to be through the teachings of Rebbe Nachman. And as it's written in Chaim Maharan, that Besof Yamim, Besof, at the end of days, the entire world is going to be Breslov. The entire world would be aflamed with the flames of Breslov. Now, I don't think that means that everybody is going to look Breslov, or everybody is going to claim that they're Breslov, or that everybody will even know who Rebbe Nachman of Breslov is. But what I do think that means is that at the end of days, at the limit, at the edge of things, where the light of the origin seems really concealed because we're entering into the dark light of the end, anybody who has emunah, anybody who's connected to Torah, anybody who's connected to mitzvos or to bitachon or to the hiskashos of tzaddikim, is somehow one way or another mekusher to the light of Rebbe Nachman. That what Rebbe Nachman brought into this world, and this might be the purpose of what these shirim are for, to try and be masbir this nekuda, that the light of Rebbe Nachman for our generation and for generations to come and generations past is the light of emunah, is the light of faith. And like we spoke about in the series of shirim on Rav Yitzchak Morgenstern Shlita, who will continue to speak about throughout these shirim and throughout the next shirim and all the shirim that we give Bezras Hashem, is that the emunah that Rebbe Nachman brings down into the world is not simply an emunah that sees HaKadosh Baruch Hu clear and present, but it's an emunah that finds its birthplace specifically at the bottom. There were certain tzaddikim who spoke from the top down. There were certain tzaddikim who looked at the world from the perspective of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kavyachol, and then slowly but surely saw the disintegration of unity and saw how unity falls away into brokenness. And their language of emunah didn't apply as low down as it did up above. And then there were tzaddikim like Rebbe Nachman who started from the bottom. He didn't try and elevate himself from the bottom. Rebbe Nachman lived at the limit. Rebbe Nachman's emunah, the emunah that Rebbe Nachman brought into this world, is an emunah that enlightens and inflames the lowest recesses of creation, the lowest recesses of the individual, the lowest recesses of history, the lowest recesses of experience in each and every particular heart. That the light of Rebbe Nachman is the light that teaches us that no matter how far gone a person feels they might be, no matter how far removed history appears to be from the general plan of Yichud of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, no matter how vacant the space seems to be, devoid of the light of the infinite, it is specifically there, says Rebbe Nachman, that a person will be capable of uncovering the true light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If it were not for Rebbe Nachman, there would be certain areas in a Jewish individual's life where they can possibly say that the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't come here. That yes, the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is large and deep and expansive, but there's a limit. There's a limit towards where the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu can go. Comes along Rebbe Nachman, Zakt Rebbe Nachman, no, there's no limit. The light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu can be found anywhere. It might not be a present light. That light might be concealed. That light might be hidden. And the only way to access that light might be through the existential cry of Aye Mekom Kavodo, of where is your glory, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But nevertheless, no matter where a person finds themselves, the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu penetrates into that space. That is the Torah of Rebbe Nachman. The Torah of Rebbe Nachman is the Torah of Nahama. Numerous times throughout Chayim Maharan and in Koich Ve'or from Rav Avram ben Rebbe Nachman, a tzaddik who we're going to be introduced to next week, Be'ezras Hashem. Numerous times Rebbe Nachman compares his name or associates its name with the concept of Nahama, with the concept of being comforted. Now there's another tzaddik whose yard said it is tonight, Rav Moshe Shapiro Tzlusi Yagan Aleinu. And while Rav Moshe Shapiro Tzlusi Yagan Aleinu was by no means a Breslover as far as I know, Rav Moshe Shapiro has a teaching about the concept of Nahama, about the concept of what being comforted means. The word Nahama, which is again associated with the word Nachman, or Nachamu, Rav Moshe Shapiro says that following the teachings of the Vilna Gaon and Rav Tzadok HaKohen Milublin, if a person wants to truly understand the meaning of a word in Tanakh, if a person truly wants to have an understanding of what a word actually means, you have to look to the first instantiation of that word in Tanakh. Where is the first time that it appears? Because the first time the word appears is the time that that word holds itself in its essence. And every other time that word appears, you can infer or intuit the true meaning of the word based on the first time that word is brought down. And Rav Moshe Shapiro says as follows. He says, the first time that the word nechama, or the concept of comfort, being comforted when things are difficult, being comforted when things are gone, when things are lost, when things are gefährlich and broken, the first time we find that is in Parshas Noach. Vayinachem Hashem. And Hashem regretted the fact that he had created the world. Hashem regretted the fact that this space of light had been filled with darkness, that this space of Chaim had been filled with Mavis. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kavyachol was Vayinachem. He regretted the fact that he created the world and he wanted to destroy it. Rav Moshe Shapiro says that the word Vayinachem at that point means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu changed his mind. So the first instantiation of the word Nechama is indicative of the fact that it means changing one's mind. Yes, in that first instantiation of the word Nechama, it's in a negative way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kavyachol changes his mind from wanting the world to not wanting the world Kavyachol. But the true essence of the meaning of Nechama is changing one's mind. And Rav Moshe goes on to say that the true essence of comfort, somebody who's struggling and avelus, someone who's stuck in the dark, someone who has lost something, the avoda is to try and change their mind, to have them look at things from a different perspective. I'm not sure there's a better way to introduce the teachings of Rebbe Nachman of Breslov, because the concept of Nachman, of Nechama, is changing our minds. Rebbe Nachman comes to teach us how to look at the world differently, how to see the world in a way that is deeper than it appears in our eyes. Yes, Rebbe Nachman says when you look at the world on its basic level, everything is gefährlich, everything is broken. That was back then, it's certainly true now. But what Rebbe Nachman's Torah teaches us as the bechina of Vayinachem Hashem, that Rebbe Nachman teaches us to change our minds, to learn how to look at the world differently. Not to necessarily change the world, not to change the ingredients that we have, because the world remains the world, but to look at the world differently and with those eyes, with that psicha sa'enin that Rebbe Nachman enables us to have, that opening of our eyes, it allows us to look at the world in a different light. And where we once saw darkness, we can see light. And when we saw hopelessness, we can find hope. And when we saw shvira, we can find tikkun. And where we saw a limit, we can realize the unlimited nature of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When it comes to teaching Rebbe Nachman again, and this is why I put Rebbe Nachman in parentheses, or in scare quotes, not parentheses, is because Rebbe Nachman can be understood in an infinite amount of ways. Reb Noson already hints to this in his Haptama to Likutei Maharan, when he says that the biggest chiddush of the Torah of Rebbe Nachman is not the niflaos of the Torah, not the precision or the genius and the complete control of the writings of the Ramak and the Arizal and the students of the Baal Shem Tov and the Rambam and Moreh Nevuchim and Chazal. That's incredible and it's mind-boggling, but that's not the biggest chiddush of the Torah in Likutei Maharan. Rebbe Noson says the biggest chiddush in Likutei Maharan is that the Torah descends from the loftiest place down to the lowest place. That the Torah of Likutei Maharan emerges from a place referred to as Atika Stima'a, the concealed ancient storehouses of wisdom, so ancient that they can only be sensed of as a future. But they don't stay there. They descend, they cascade like a waterfall down to the bottom. They become eitzos pshutos, they become simple instructions. That's the chiddush of Rebbe Nachman's Torah. Not the complications, not the geonis, not the chachmos of it, but the tamimus of it, the fact that Rebbe Nachman's teaching can be applied and utilized as therapeutic tools on a daily level, moment to moment. I personally, on my own humble level, have only survived through the teachings of Rebbe Nachman. I can say that Bepemal, I have only survived spiritually, physically, through the teachings of Rebbe Nachman. Because when all other Torah fails you, or I shouldn't say when all other Torah fails you, when all other Torah is too light to penetrate the dark spaces, the Torah of Rebbe Nachman comes and says, Al tidag, don't worry, the Torah can still come down to where you are. There's no place too dark for my Torah to come down. The Torah of Rebbe Nachman, Rebbe Noson writes in his Atama, descends from the place of Atik all the way down to the Bechina of Netzach and Hoid. Those legs that dangle in death like we've spoken about so often. And the Chiddush is that a person can tap into the Torah of Rebbe Nachman at the loftiest level. You can learn the Torah of Rebbe Nachman like a Makubal learns the Torah, to see the Hezberim and the Chidushim and the writings of the Arizal and the Ramak and Mahari Sarug that hadn't been revealed Meishanim Kadmoniot. Or a person can learn the Torah of Rebbe Nachman on the level of Netzach and Hod, which are eitzos pshutos, which are simple instructions as to how to function with the daily anxiety that a person experiences in 2020. The Chiddush of Rebbe Nachman is that it's down here and above at the same time, b'vas achas, like he explains so often. It's Elyon and Tachton together, simultaneously. Each and every person can tap into the Torah of Rebbe Nachman wherever they're at. Some people will tap in at the top of the waterfall, at the Bechina of Atik or Keser. Rav Itchemeyer learns these Torahs as the Keser HaKsarim. Or a person can tap into these Torahs on the level of Netzach and Hod as Eitzos Pshutos, as a way to get up in the morning, as a way to get out of bed, as a way to be machazik oneself after all things have gone out, after all lights have been extinguished. And the only fire that seems to still burn is the Eish Sheli Shetukar Adiyas HaMashiach, the fire of Rebbe Nachman that burns until the coming of Mashiach. Rav Itchemeyer Morgenstern writes as follows, in Yam HaChochma Tafshin Ayin Tes. This is on page Reish Nun Vav, 256. The Echad HaHezberim de Inyan Zeh. One of the ways to fully understand the teachings of Rebbe Nachman is to understand that what he said about himself is that he finds himself in the Heichal HaGvanim HaMishtanim. The Rebbe Nachman writes that he exists and his Torah comes from the palace of changing colors, of shifting colors. Shifting colors is the fact that at one moment a person can look at their lives and the world and the Torah and Hashem and say one thing, and the next moment they could think something else. And the next moment it might look like something else. And the next moment it might be unrecognizable from what existed the moment before. For most tzaddikim, for the Torah before Rebbe Nachman, that's going to create a cognitive dissonance. That's going to create a sense of scatteredness, of pirud, of thinking of the Torah one way and another way and another way, and creating all sorts of tohu in a person's life. Zakt Rebbe Nachman that the fact that the colors change, the changing of the colors, that Heichal HaGvanim HaMishtanim, that palace, that chamber of changing colors, is not a negative thing, but rather it reveals and it shows how the Torah can manifest itself in an infinite amount of ways while maintaining and retaining its essential kernel. The Torah of Rebbe Nachman can apply itself in an infinite amount of ways, from the top down to the bottom, from the loftiest down to the lowest, and each and every gvan, each and every color of it is true because that's the individual's grasp of his Torah. Rav Itchemeyer Shlita continues and he says, one of the explanations of the Torah of Rebbe Nachman being rooted in the Heichal HaGvanim HaMishtanim, as being rooted in that chamber of changing colors, Lilamdenu, in order to teach us, she'ein gevan echad l'Torahs Rabbeinu Zal, that there's no singular color, there's no singular you of how to approach the writings of Rebbe Nachman. Ve'ein derech achas belimud v'havanas Toraso HaKadosh. And there's no singular way to properly understand his Torah. Ella kalula Torasa me'alfa mahalchim. But rather his Torah contains within itself thousands of different directions. V'chol echad me'Yisrael yachol lilmod lahasig b'likuta ma'aran b'gvan acher. And each and every individual, each and every Jewish person has the capacity of understanding the Sefer Likutei Moharan in a different way. In the aspect of Ish Asher Ruach Bo. Like Chazal told us that there's an Ish Asher Ruach Bo. That there is an individual whose Ruach, whose Neshama knows how to speak to each and every person. And Chazal say, Sheyachol lahalich keneged rucho shel kol echad v'echad. Talking about Mashiach really. That he will have the capacity of speaking to each and every individual on their own particular level. And Rebbe Nachman, Ravitcher Meyer continues and he says, "V'lo mi ba'i l'dor shebechol dor yesh le'mod lidrosh lahavenes ha'atzos v'hasig et sa'amkas b'toras Rabbeinu Zal l'fi ha'kelim v'ha'metziyah shel b'nei Osador." I'm not saying, says Ravitcher Meyer, that this is true from generation to generation, that each generation has a way of understanding the Torah of Rebbe Nachman. Even though that's true. But rather what I'm saying is that each and every person at each and every moment has a different way of approaching the Torah of Rebbe Nachman. And the colors of the Torah of the Tzaddik change from person to person. So what one person thinks Rebbe Nachman is going to be totally opposite for what another person thinks Rebbe Nachman is. And both of them are going to be true. Lefi shirish nishmaso, according to the root of that individual soul, the achizas makomo benishmas atzadik. V'chein lefi goydel chipushay achar haruach hakodesh va'etzos va'asoides hagnuzos ha'amukas ha'tmunos b'divrei atzadik shlefi erech zem etgalim heim ha'alav. And Ravitcher Meyer continues and he says that not only does each and every person have their own understanding of the Torah of Rebbe Nachman, but it's according to the effort and the belief that a person has in the Torah of Rebbe Nachman that they will find the light of Rebbe Nachman. Like Rav Aaron of Karlin used to sing on Meron, on Lag BaOmer, Mi shemamin beReb Shimon Bar Yochai, yesh lo chizik beReb Shimon Bar Yochai. Those who believe in Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai will have support from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. That the belief in the tzaddik is the way to have access to his Torah. And that dependent on your belief in the tzaddik, you will have an understanding of his Torah. What this means is that if we believe Rebbe Nachman has to say something to us in 2020, then we will hear what Rebbe Nachman has to say to us in 2020. Be'ezras Hashem, what I want to try and do in this series of shirim is show where the tzaddik is buried. The tzaddik is buried in Uman. The tzaddik is also buried in Yerushalayim. The tzaddik is also by David HaMelech. But Rebbe Nachman himself let us know where he can be found as well. The tzaddik let us know, Rebbe Nachman let us know that if you want to find me, you can also find me in my book. Because the tzaddik, the mechaber, is moshrish rucho v'nishmaso b'soch osio saksav. The tzaddik leaves himself imprinted in his book. Rebbe Nachman says that the book, the sefer, is the bechia of the mechaber. That a sefer is the tears of the person who has written that sefer. I have no capacity to teach anything about where the neshama of Rebbe Nachman is. In Uman, in Yerushalayim, in both places, 2 at 1, 1 at 2. I have my tzaddikim, people have their tzaddikim. We know where Rebbe Nachman is in the world. What we all have access to, however, whether we're in Uman, Yerushalayim, or Chutz La'aretz, or 1,000 miles away, is to the neshama of the tzaddik who plants himself within his sefer. And that when we learn the words of Rebbe Nachman, we're not only learning ideas. We're not only connecting to dead ideas with a dead author, where the ideas are disconnected from the mechaber, but we're reading a living text. We're engaging with a sefer that is alive. A sefer of collected teachings of Moreinu Harav Rebbe Nachman that gives chayas to the individual. That there are tzaddikim and there are times in my own life where I can attest to this, that the only thing that I could do is read the words in Likutei Maharan. And I'm not a Breslover. The words of Likutei Maharan, the words of the Tzaddik, give chayus. They give life. Because there's hope embedded within that sefer. And what we're going to try and do in this series of shir is show Rebbe Nachman through certain teachings in Likutei Maharan. We're not going to look at Likutei Halachos. We're not going to look at Chaim Maharan. We're not going to look at Sichos Maharan. We're not going to look at the Sipurim. We're not going to look at the Koich Ve'or, or all of the Masorah and the Mashiach Sugi of Rebbe Nachman. Person can speak infinitely about Rebbe Nachman. What we're going to talk about is the Torah of Rebbe Nachman. Particular Torahs which we hope to show contain a kernel of what Rebbe Nachman may have been trying to say to us, or at least what he was trying to say to me in 2020. That being said, there's two general introductions that I want to give with regards to what Rebbe Nachman means to me and what I'm going to try and share when learning the Torah of Rebbe Nachman through Likutei Maharan. In Sichos Haran, in teaching Lamed Hey, the 35th teaching in Sichos Haran, Rebbe Nachman says as follows: The Amar, and he announced. Rebbe Noson, when recording the teachings of Rebbe Nachman, very often teaches it in the way of the Zohar. When a person learns the Zohar, and again, Rebbe Nachman is very mekusher to Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai, as is apparent from the Hakdama, L'chu chazu mifalos Hashem asher sam shamos ba'aretz. The Rebbe Nachman introduces his entire sefer with a teaching about Rashbi, Ir v'kadosh min shmaya, that Rebbe Nachman saw himself as a continuity, as a continuation of the Zohar HaKadosh. Because the Zohar HaKadosh, as our tzaddikim teach us, is not simply a book of instruction, but it's a book of redemption. That the Ramchal teaches us that when a person learns the Zohar, it's not that we're preparing for Geula, but we're tasting Geula. The Zohar HaKadosh is a Tevas Noach. It's the ark where we hide ourselves throughout the tumultuous waters and the storms of the outside. When a person learns the Zohar HaKadosh, when a person learns the words of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, they're quite literally tasting Geula. So when the Zohar HaKadosh says so often, and Rabbi Nachman quotes this as well, that Bahai Safra Yafkin Megalusa, that by learning this sefer you will be redeemed from galus or from exile. It doesn't mean that by learning the Zohar and Pnimiyas HaTorah a person will merit the future redemption, but rather learning the Zohar is in and of itself an act of redemption. That when a person finds themselves swept up in the flowing waves of the Zohar HaKadosh, there is no galus. The Nahama of Rashbi, the words of Rashbi, illuminate the soul and they remind you that it's okay. The lullaby of the Aramaic words of the Zohar HaKadosh, even and specifically when a person has no idea what it's talking about, it reminds a person that everything is okay. Rebbe Nachman introduces his sefer to teach us that this sefer, Likutei Maharan, is the same way. That learning Likutei Maharan is not simply learning the teachings of the tzaddik, but it's entering into the world of the tzaddik. It's entering into the world where there is a neshama that tells us, Al tidag, don't worry, ein shem yesh ba'olam klal. He doesn't simply say ein shem yesh ba'olam klal, it's Rabbeinu sha'ag b'kol gadol. That Rabbeinu screamed in the strength of his soul. Rabbeinu screamed with everything that he had in him. Rebbe Nachman screamed, and he demanded us to remember, Ein shum yesh ba'olam klal. There is no such thing as losing hope. And the only reason he had to say that was because he understood fully how easy and reasonable it would be to lose hope. If losing hope wasn't so easy, Rebbe Nachman would not have to scream it from the top of his lungs and shry Ein shum yesh ba'olam klal. It's specifically because the neshama, Rebbe Nachman, the tzaddik, understood how easy it would be to lose hope in our lives, in our individual lives, that he had to remind us, Ein shem yesh ba'olam klal. There's no such thing as giving up hope. Which means that even when you lose hope, there's still hope. Because, as I've said a couple of times over the past few days, Rebbe Nachman says two things, and very often in the same sentence. Rebbe Nachman says, Asur lehityayish. it's forbidden to give up hope. And Rebbe Nachman says, Ein shum yesh ba'olam klal, there's no such thing as giving up hope. The first way of saying it, asur lehitya'ish, it's asur, it's prohibited to give up hope, implies that losing hope is a possibility, but there's a prohibition against it. It's an isur, it's an avera to lose hope. But the concept of Ein shum yesh ba'olam klal implies that the concept of losing hope doesn't exist. And approaching this teaching like a chakira, we can say as follows, that it's also to give up hope. A person can never lose hope. A person always has to be mechazik themselves ba'avoida. A person always has to remember that no matter where they are, Hashem is present. No matter how dark it is, the light can still be found. But let's say a person, God forbid, does lose hope in themselves, in other people, in the world, in the Torah, in Tefillah, in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's when Rebbe Nachman's real Chiddush comes out, that even in the place of Yeyush, even in the place where you feel that you've lost hope, where you have gone beyond that prohibition, that transgression, and you have given in to losing hope, Ein shum Yeyush ba'olam klal. Losing hope doesn't exist. You think you've lost hope. You think there's no more hope. But what Rebbe Nachman comes and teaches us is that the loss of hope is an impossibility. Because as long as a person is still breathing, there's hope. As long as a person takes a neshima in and out, a ratza v'shov, of resting and running and returning and running and returning, there is an infinite amount of hope that exists in spite of our best efforts to lose hope in it. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence is not up to us to decide whether it's real or not. Rebbe Nachman forces us to acknowledge that Hashem exists in spite of our greatest speculation, in spite of our greatest chachmos. Because on the level of Tamimus, Ein shum yeyush ba'olam klal. Losing hope is not a possibility, even when you feel hopeless. There is an irreducible hope that abides in the recesses of hopelessness. That's specifically when a person finds themselves at the bottom of the barrel, scraping at the shards of experience to find chayus, to find life, to find emunah, to find the reason to continue in avodah. That's where Rebbe Nachman speaks to us. Rebbe Nachman says as follows in Torah Lamed Hey, V'amar, and he announces, like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Pasach Rabbi Shimon. He opens up the world and he speaks. Through his speech, he opens the world. When Rebbe Nachman says, V'amar, and he said, it means that he opened the world with his words. Shehoylech apikorsis gadol al ha'olam. A great heresy, a great denial is going to overcome and overtake the world. V'chein siper kama pa'amim shehoylech v'nimshach apikorsis gadol ba'avarosenu harabim ba'olam. And he stressed numerous times that there would be a great heresy, a great denial that would spread forth across the world as a result of our inequities, as a result of our transgressions. Ashrei mi sheyechazik atzmo be'amuna be'elu ha'itim. Ashrei. Ashrei is how Rebbe Nachman opens up his Sefer Likutei Moharan. Ashrei tamimei derech. Praiseworthy are those who still hold on to hope. Praiseworthy are those who strengthen themselves in the time of this great apikorsis that darkens the light of the world, that darkens the shemesh of breirus, of clarity. Now, for Rebbe Nachman, apikorsis is not philosophical. Apikorsis is not heresy. It's not a rational argument against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not a rational argument against the validity of faith. As Rebbe Nachman makes very clear in Torah Samach Dalet of Boyel Paro, apikorsis is the thing that finds itself in the world because of the shviras hakelim, because of the tzimtzum. Apikorsis is that darkness that surrounds all things, that tells us maybe it's not true. Maybe things will be terrible. Maybe things have no hope. Maybe things won't go the way we need them to go. Maybe I won't be able to continue. Each and every person understands according to their own particular heart. Nishmat Shaddai Tavinem. The soul of HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks through the emotions of the individual, as Rebbe Nachman teaches us so often, based on the pasuk in Eov. Each person knows what this apikorsis means. The difficulty that we have in believing in ourselves, the difficulty that we have believing in our friends, the difficulty that we have believing in the Torah or HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's going to be a great apikorsis that covers over the earth. But, Rebbe Nachman says, Ashrei mi sheyechazik et atzmo. Whoever can strengthen themselves in this time, praiseworthy are they. Rebbe Nachman is not trying to teach us how to have easy faith. The faith of Rebbe Nachman, the Emunah that Rebbe Nachman teaches us, is not a simple faith. It's a faith at the limit. That's not to claim that Chas v'Shalom, like some other people wanted to claim, that the tzaddik lived at the limit. We have no idea how the tzaddik lived. We have no idea what Rebbe Nachman was, or who he was, or what he felt, or what he wanted to say. But what it means for us on a particular level, like Rav Itchemeyer pointed out, each person according to their own color, each person according to their own gvan, apikorsis means something unique to each and every one of us. And Rebbe Nachman teaches us that a person has to be machazik themselves in this apikorsis. But what value is there? What value is there in Rebbe Nachman telling us that there'll be a great apikorsis, that there'll be a great denial and a great hopelessness in the world, a great darkness in the world? What value is that to us? So then we have to look elsewhere. We have to look at Sichos Haran, Reish Chaf, 220. And the only reason I was able to connect these two teachings is because Rav Levi Yitzchak Bender, Schus Yagan Aleinu, says to connect these two teachings. In this teaching, Rabbi Nachman hints a little bit more. In Torah Lamed Hey, Rabbi Nachman says, Chevra, be aware that there'll be a Gevaldik apikorsis in the world, but you got to strengthen yourself. In Reish Chaf, he says something a little bit different, adding a little bit more light to that statement. Sichos Haran, Ois Reish Chaf says as follows. Pam achas amar le'echad. Once upon a time, Rabbi Nachman said to somebody, El gala l'chasoid. I'm going to tell you a secret. And when Rebbe Nachman says a galil chasoid, he's telling us a secret. He's telling us a real secret, a secret that can give chayas, that can be machaya mason. Sheyihye apikorsis gadol ba'olam. The secret is there's going to be great apikorsis in the world. What we saw in Lamed Hey, but not as a secret, as a statement. In Lamed Hey, it was a critical statement, a diagnosis, if you will, of the apikorsis that will cover the world. In Reish Chaf and Sichos Haran, it's a secret. The secret is that there will be a great apikorsis in the world. Ki me lamala yavo apikorsis ba'olam. Where does this apikorsis come from? Where does this great darkness come from, this great denial, this great loss of hope? It comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It comes from Hashem. Ki afilu b'hastara shebesecha hastara bevadei sham nimtza Hashem yisparach. Because Rebbe Nachman teaches us that even in the greatest darkness, even in the greatest concealment, even in the Hastara Shebaseicha Hastara, Bevadai Sham Nimsa Hashem Yisparach, certainly HaKadosh Baruch Hu is still found there. Because what gives life to the concealment other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu? So here Rebbe Nachman is saying that Kilamalo Yava Apikorsis Ba'olam. That Apikorsis descends from on high. It comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. B'shvil hanisayon. In order so that we can actually engage in a test and engage in our Bechira. Rebbe Nachman feels very strongly about Bechira. Very strongly. Somebody came to Rebbe Nachman, and this is one of the last teachings in Likutei Moharan Chelik Beis. It says a chassid came to Rebbe Nachman and asked him, is there Bechira, is there not Bechira? The Ana Rabbeinu b'pshitos. And Rabbeinu answered b'pshitos. And that word pshitos is important because what Rebbe Noson is saying is that there's an amkus here. The pshitos avada yesh bechira. There's always bechira. The entire purpose of creation is so that the human being can choose to find HaKadosh Baruch Hu, specifically in Dafka where he's not found. To drag HaKadosh Baruch Hu down Kavyachol into the places where it makes so much sense to say that Hashem is not there. But Dafka and Afal Pikain, we say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there. That's the Nisayon, that's the Bechira, that's the purpose of creation. And Rebbe Nachman continues and he says, V'ani yodea she'anashim sheli gam below ze yitchazku be'emunah be'emes v'yesharu kayamim be'emunasam. I know that I don't have to warn about this. I know that my chevra, my people, those who have drank from that Hungarian wine, those who have been zoichet to taste from the light of Rebbe Nachman, and quite frankly, a person doesn't have to learn Rebbe Nachman to taste from the light of Rebbe Nachman. If a person ever learned Michtav Me'Eliyahu from Rav Eliyahu Dessler, they've tasted from the light of Rabbi Nachman. If a person has learned the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, they've tasted the light of Rabbi Nachman. Anytime a person has uttered true words to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in their loneliness, in their isolation, in their despondency, they've tasted from the light of Rabbi Nachman. In our loneliness, in our solitude, in our hispoidedus, you don't have to learn Likutei Moharan to be a Breslover. You have to be alive to be a Breslover. You have to be alive to connect to the light of Rebbe Nachman. It says, I know that my people don't need me to warn them about this apikorsis in order to stand strong. So why am I telling you this, Rebbe Nachman says? I'm just trying to give you a little bit more chizuk because somebody who came before you said this. You think your chesronos, you think your struggle, you think your difficulty, you think your sveikos are unique? Rebbe Nachman says, no. I told you this, I warned you about this. There was somebody who came before you who experienced this. Avada, it won't fix everything, but it will give you the chizuk that you need to move forward. Knowing that a tzaddik before us tasted darkness, knowing that a tzaddik before us understood the difficulty of holding faith, knowing that a tzaddik before us understood how hard it would be to have Emunah in 2020, gives us chizuk. Because if our tzaddikim knew, that means that there's a place for us. Like we said before in the name of Rebbe Noson, that the chiddush of Rebbe Nachman is that he's speaking to us in 2020. That there's something nitzchi in the words of Rebbe Nachman. And Rebbe Nachman continues, Rebbe Noson continues, and he writes as follows in Osrei Shchaf. We heard things like this from his mouth all the time. Rebbe Nachman would krechs and he would sigh about this. The Ammar, and he would say, Oy, eich yuchlu la'amod anashim mu'atim neged kol ha'olam. How could it be that so few people can stand against the entire world? How could it be that so few people, the people who are willing to understand the light of Rebbe Nachman, the people who are willing to find faith and faithlessness, hope and hopelessness, light and darkness, how could it be that so few people will be able to be victorious over the world? He doesn't answer. The same way he doesn't tell us how the viceroy saves the lost princess at the end of Sipuri Maisios. All he tells us is that Besof Yatzo, at the end she was taken out. At the end Geula arrives. We don't know how, but we know that it will be. Rebbe Nachman's teachings are coming to teach us that yes, it's difficult. Yes, very often it seems hopeless, but there's someone who came before you who understood this. There's someone who experienced the same thing. There's someone who has paved the path for you. There's somebody who has treaded that shvil min hatzad, that pathway to the side, which seems so counterintuitive, where up is down and down is up, the heichal hagavanim hamishtanim, that chamber of changing secrets. There's a tzaddik who came before you to teach you this. Rebbe Nachman writes this as well in Torah Mem Ches and Mem Tes in the Likutei Moharan. He says as follows, Shamanu mit tzadikei emes she'amar. We heard from the truly righteous. We heard from the true tzaddikim. She'ilu haya omer lo echad. That had it only been that somebody whispered to them, Yihiyeh mi sheyihiyeh, whoever it was, be'eis she'asak ba'avodas Hashem b'tchilaso. At the beginning, when avodas Hashem, when faith, when Emunah felt so difficult, if only someone would have said to them, Achi, chazak ve'achoz atzmacha, strengthen yourself and hold strong. If someone would have told me that, Rebbe Nachman says, Hayitzi ratz umizdaris ma'oid ba'avodas yisparach. I would have thrown myself with intensity into the avodah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kigam avar alav kol hanal. Because even that tzaddik, even that person experienced everything that I'm experiencing. V'lo haya shomea shum hitchazkus b'shum adam. But Rebbe Nachman says, I didn't hear anything from anybody. Nobody told me this. Nobody told me that I would be okay, says Rebbe Nachman. Al kein mitzvah rotze lichnois ba'avodas Hashem. Someone who wants to enter into avodas Hashem, Yizkor zos heitiv, believe this and remember this, that somebody who's come before you and said that it's going to be difficult, and even when it's difficult, you can survive. Chazek atzmacha ma'od, strengthen yourself. Va'asem ma shetucha ba'avodas Hashem, and do what you can do. Not what you're supposed to do, not what you should do, but what you can do. Ubirabos hayamim v'hashanim, and over time, Tichnois levetach be'ezraso yisparach l'soich sharei hakadusha. At the end of it all, a person will nichnas into the gates of Kedusha. A person will enter into the gates of Kedusha. Here Rebbe Nachman is changing his words. It's not a doubt anymore. Here it's a vadai. That the hishtadlus, the azus, that stubbornness, that even when it's hard, you push forward, sofa matana. At the end of the day, you will find access to Beis HaKedusha. Ki Hashem yisparach malei rachamim v'rotze ba'avodascha ma'od. Because God is empathic, kavyachol. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is compassionate to us, which Rebbe Nachman says is the entire purpose of the creation of the world. And eventually, Be'ezras Hashem, B'sof Yatzayu, you'll be able to save that princess. Rebbe Nachman continues and he says, Vida, and know, Shekol hatnuos v'hatakot, all movements and removals that a person engages in. She'ata nitek v'ne'etak b'chol pam be'ezem me'at min gashmiut la'avodato yisparach. Every slight movement that you make to elevate yourself out of that stuckness, out of that brokenness, out of that concealment, every slight movement that you make, kulam mitkabsim umitchabrim umitkashrim uba'im la'ezrasecha be'ez hatzara. All of them gather together and they're there to help you. For Rebbe Nachman, nothing is levatala. There's no emotion, there's no holy thought, there's no holy emotion, there's no holy movement that is levatala. It all stands at the ready to give chizuk to the individual. Dahainu kishayesh chas v'shalom eza doichek ve'ez tzara. That God forbid when a person finds themselves b'shas hatchak. And like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, kedai lismoich alav b'shas hatchak. Rashbi and the tzaddikim are strong enough to have us rely on them when times are difficult. A person has to understand sha'adam sarich la'avor, that a person has to pass by and has to traverse al gesher tsar me'oid me'oid, on a very, very narrow bridge. The haklal, the ha'ikar, shalo yitpached klal. Rabbi Nachman is not telling us anything other than don't be afraid, mein kinder. My children, do not be afraid because you will be okay. It will be okay. It is okay. Because afilu behastara shebesoicha hastara bevadai nimsa sham Hashem yisparach. To end with the last hakdama, which might be the most important, and I know it's been long, what I'm going to try and do in the writings of Rebbe Nachman is move towards the light. Through Rav Kook, through the Leshem, through the Shirim on addiction, through the Shirim on the Esther Sfiros, through the Shirim on Ishbitz and Radzin, and differently already starting with Rav Itchemeyer Shlita. Rav Itchemeyer's Torah is the Torah of Rebbe Nachman also. So that kind of settles this struggle that I had. That I'm not stopping to teach Rav Itchemeyer, I'm just teaching it differently. We've been stuck in the darkness a little bit. We've been focusing a little bit on how hard things are and how difficult things are and how it's specifically in the intensity and the darkness and the koyach hagavul and the limit and the lack of faith where we find the deepest resources of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But for myself, and anybody who's willing to listen to me, I need to start speaking a little bit more about the light, about the fact that, yes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mitzamtzim himself, but yes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is or Ein Sof. After the tzimtzum, before the tzimtzum, all is or. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is present everywhere. Rebbe Nachman's writings are writings of hope. They're not writings of tzibrochenkite. Rebbe Nachman tasted this. Rebbe Nachman speaks about suffering in a way that no other tzaddik speaks about suffering, but Rebbe Nachman is so entrenched in light, unlike any other tzaddik. So what we're going to try and do is make ourselves a little bit lighter, less heavy. What I'm going to try and show through Rebbe Nachman's writings is that Rebbe Nachman wants us to feel lighter in this world, to breathe deeper, to be ma'arich af, to inhale a little bit longer, to hold our breath and relax for a moment, and to realize that even though everything is broken and nothing is okay, everything is still okay. In Torah Ches and Likutei Moharan, Rebbe Nachman writes as follows. This is an idea that Rebbe Nachman writes in numerous places, but it's specifically here that I want to bring it based on the Torah and Chayei Moharan that we're going to end with. Rebbe Nachman says as follows, Hine yakar genuchei genach meish Yisraeli. How powerful, how valuable is a krechs? How powerful is a sigh? How powerful is that despondent krechs, that oy vai, that oy of the Jewish soul when they confront difficulty? Rebbe Nachman says the reason it's so great is because kihu shleimas hachasronos. Because when a Jew sighs, when a Jew recognizes that there's difficulty in the world, that's dafka how we fill the lack. Ki al yedei bechinas haneshima. Because through breathing, shehu ruach chayim, which is our vitality, nivra ha'olam, the world was created, like the pasuk says, beruach piv kol tzva'am. V'chidush ha'olam yihya gam kein bebechinas haruach. You want to know how to recreate your world? You want to know how to create a new space for yourself? Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Be ma'arich af. Hold your anger. Recognize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is present. Like the pasuk says, "Teshalech ruchacha yivroun v'techadesh pnei ha'adama." That through your breath, through the breath of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, kavyachol, the ground and the earth will be renewed. V'ugam kein chayas ha'adam, and it's also our chayas, the ability to take a deep breath, is what tells us that even though everything is gefährlich and everything seems broken, and even though there's only chasronos, when we inhale, when we take a deep breath, we fill that void. We take that empty space in the world and in ourselves, and we allow it to be the source of music, to be the source of shevach, to be the source of the tikkun klali, to be the birth of the spoken word, like my Yedid Nafshi, David Weinberg, Rav David Weinberg is writing about, based on the teachings of Rebbe Nachman. On this teaching, Torah Ches, Rebbe Nachman writes as follows. Rebbe Noson records in Chayei Moharan Ois Daled. And I think that this is exactly, if I needed to summarize what I'm going to try and do in these limited amount of shirim, through the Torah of all the living tzaddikim, and all the tzaddikim asher ba'aretz hema va'adirei kol chafsei bam, beprat Rabbeinu Nachman ben Fega, Nachol Nevei Makor Chachma, the stream that irrigates the field that stems from Gan Eden, giving us a taste of La'asid Lavo in this moment. Rabbi Noson writes as follows, Kisha'amar HaTorah Ra'isi Menoras HaZahav. When Rebbe Nachman taught that teaching about how the sigh and how inhaling allows a person to feel that lack and remember that it's still full, he said it in Shabbos Chanukah Tov Kuf Samach Gimel. And the reason he said this Torah was to destroy our enemies. Rebbe Nachman said his Torah is tefillos. All of the Torah that we learn through Rebbe Nachman should become a tefillah for each and every one of us. And Rebbe Noson continues describing the process of these teachings. And afterwards he says, quite possibly my favorite sentence in the entirety of the writings of Breslov. Gam az amar halatza. After this Torah, Rebbe Nachman said as follows to his Chasidim, Kisha tis'u v'yishalu etchem ma pa'altem. When you travel away from me, and they ask you, what have you done? What did you do by Rebbe Nachman? What did you learn there? Taimru ruach. Answer them, ruach, air. We breathed. We learned how to breathe. We learned how to feel the air of the world. How to be menateka atzmam, how to elevate ourselves out of the uffer of the world, out of the dust of the world, out of the heaviness of the world, and to become lighter, to breathe easier, to laugh at the world, to take a deep breath and be ma'arich af and realize that it's all good, it's all okay. That's what Rebbe Nachman's Torahs are Mir Hashem going to come to teach us. How, specifically at the bottom, we can learn to breathe. We can learn how to become lighter. When they ask you what you've accomplished, when they ask you what you did, Tomru Ruach. Tell them it was air, it was spirit. It was becoming lighter in this world. Be'ezras Hashem, next week we're going to point out two particular words or statements that Rebbe Nachman uses very often which are going to give us an entrance into my personal understanding of the writings of Likutei Moharan. I refer to them as the counterintuitive moment in the writings of Rebbe Nachman. That afal pikein, when Rebbe Nachman says nevertheless, and that daika, specifically. In both of those places, Rebbe Nachman is teaching us not only how to learn the Torah, but how to live in this world. And Be'ezras Hashem, the Torah of the tzaddikim, the Torah of all of the tzaddikim, living and dead, should be a schus for us and for the entire Jewish people.